Once upon a time, outside the beautiful city of Toulouse, lived a young woman with a pretty face and radiant disposition. She had an idyllic and beautifully austere life of a peasant. She lived a happy life, existing on the plentiful bounty her petite garden provided. However, her garden was like no other. Before she moved to Toulouse, the city was starving. Wheat, the lifeblood of the masses, was in short amount, and it was in this turmoil that the barbarity and ignorance of the people was in full display. Granaries were pillaged, and bakeries were raided. However, with her arrival, this savageness stopped, and this is because of how she cultivated her garden. She was able to yield from her small farm enough grain to feed all the people of Toulouse, and their wretchedness stopped. In fact, they were able to establish great amounts of industry and culture with their newfound sustenance. The secret that she possessed was that when she sang her lyric songs, the wheat grew to great heights. The more she sang her beautiful songs, the higher the wheat grew, until the stalks were over 20 feet high. However, after a few short years, her harvest would be interrupted by two foul swines. Unlike the tip of a hog, these two were dressed in the most peculiar garb. One was clad in blue robes and wearing ostentatious jewelry, consisting of the finest gold, rubies, and diamonds. The second pig was dressed in a more simple uniform of a red robe and matching zucchetto. Another abnormal characteristic of these hogs is that, unlike regular beasts, these were able to speak in the utmost eloquence and fluency. With their arrival in Toulouse, they immediately searched out the farm that had sustained the people of the city. When they reached the door of the woman, they were of the highest cordiality and spoke in a very noble and refined speech. They spoke of how, if the woman allowed them to control her wheat, that the grain would grow at an even faster rate than in her own care. Due to their convincing reasoning, she allowed them to manage her garden. Nonetheless, as hogs, there is a biological tendency to mass consume, and that is what they did to her farm. They binged on the wheat that the woman had grown, and didn't care to the land that they had just pillaged. Eventually, the woman had realized what the pigs had done to her garden, and she tried to stop it immediately. She tried to scare them away from her farm, but instead they chased her, and when she retreated to her house, they blocked the door, making it impossible for her to stop the pillaging of the city's wheat. They gorged and gorged until the wheat had dissipated to just a small handful of grain. Just before they could consume the last scraps of food, the townspeople came to her small maison and saved the woman. They unlocked her from her home and then captured the pigs, disrobed them of their clothes, and placed them in a pen. Now free, the woman was able to sing her songs again and cultivate her garden until it returned to its previous opulence, and the people of Toulouse returned to lives of prosperity, commerce, and philosophy, while reason returned to the city.